What if Mace Windu called the police on Palpatine? What would have happened then? We pick up with Anakin telling Mace that Palpatine is the Sith. Let's begin. In the temple hangar, Mace Windu and Masters Fisto, Teen, and Kolar discussed their immediate plans when Anakin Skywalker approached them, visibly distressed. Windu informed Anakin they were preparing to visit Chancellor Palpatine's office. With General Grievous eliminated, they intended to ensure Palpatine surrendered his emergency powers as promised. Anakin's revelation cut through their planning. The Chancellor, he told them, would never relinquish his authority. Palpatine had revealed himself as Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord the Jedi had hunted for years. The four masters regarded one another with stunned disbelief at this unexpected disclosure. Mace's expression darkened. Then our worst fears have been realized. We must move quickly if the Jedi Order is to survive. I'll join you, Anakin said. He trusts me. Before Mace could respond, Kit Fisto stepped forward, his tentacles swaying thoughtfully. Perhaps we should consider a different approach. This is the Supreme Chancellor we're discussing. The political implications alone. What do you suggest, Master Fisto? Mace asked. Call the Coruscant Security Force, Kit Fisto said. This avoids entangling the Jedi in political complications that would ultimately generate excessive paperwork. Let the police handle it. The police? Mace questioned. Think about it, Kit continued. Using either clones or Jedi means more administrative procedures for us. CSF has jurisdiction in criminal matters, even involving high-ranking officials. The Masters contemplated the suggestion. Master Fisto has a point, Teen conceded. This transcends Jedi affairs. It's a Republic security matter. His thoughts drifted to the fighting pits in the lower levels, where he'd planned to place several substantial wagers that evening. Windu's summons had interrupted what promised to be a profitable venture. I agree with Master Fisto as well, Anakin said with a nod. Inwardly, he believed Palpatine would be safer in their custody than facing four armed Jedi Masters. The nobility of Coruscant's law enforcement would ensure the Chancellor received proper treatment, he thought. Mace Windu nodded slowly. Very well. He activated his comlink again, this time inputting the CSF emergency frequency. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a heavy-set human officer with multiple rank insignia adorning his uniform. Captain Gordo's weathered face bore the marks of 30 years in Coruscant law enforcement. A crooked nose broken multiple times, a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, and jowls that sagged beneath 3 days of stubble with patches of gray. His small, calculating eyes blinked away sleep as he hastily adjusted an officer's cap perched unevenly atop his disheveled hair. The top buttons of his uniform remained undone, revealing an undershirt with visible food stains. CSF Special Operations, Captain Gordo speaking, he mumbled, suppressing a yawn. This is Master Mace Windu of the Jedi Council. We have credible evidence that Chancellor Palpatine may be involved in treasonous activities against the Republic. We need your officers to bring him in for questioning, Mace finished. Captain Gordo's eyes widened. The Chancellor himself? Understood, Master Jedi. We'll handle this with the utmost discretion and professionalism. After the transmission ended, Captain Gordo assembled his closest associates, officers known throughout the department for their creative interpretations of procedure. Listen up, he told the gathered officers. We've got the Chancellor himself, rich as a Hutt's treasury. This is an opportunity we cannot afford to waste. Gordo quickly outlined the plan, directing 2 officers to retrieve several packages from the evidence locker, items that had mysteriously disappeared from the official inventory months ago. He referred to the operation as Federal Protocol S-10, a special administrative procedure developed specifically for Senate-level detainments. The assembled team nodded in silent understanding. They'd executed this protocol numerous times on Senate workers and officials, with each officer knowing their exact role in what would ultimately become an elaborate shakedown. Soon, 12 high-ranking officers made their way to the Chancellor's office, security clearances smoothing their path. Before reaching the main entrance, they paused at a security terminal, where a tech specialist pulled out equipment far more sophisticated than standard CSF gear. The devices, advanced scramblers and signal intercepts, were seized during a raid on a family-owned spice trafficking operation in the lower levels 3 months earlier. Unfortunately, as the official report stated, the operation had blown up with everyone inside. All product, lives, and credits were lost in the explosion, though the officers' expanded personal accounts and new collection of untraceable equipment told a different story. One officer deftly inserted a splicing module into the terminal, bypassing Senate security protocols in seconds. These tools offered capabilities well beyond officially allotted CSF equipment, which couldn't hope to penetrate Senate-level systems. They created an electronic dead zone encompassing the entire suite while another officer quietly disabled the security holocams with a precision device that looped the previous 5 minutes of footage. They entered without ceremony, knowing that no calls could penetrate their communications blackout, essential for ensuring discretion when they eventually presented the Chancellor with their unofficially negotiable administrative fines. "Chancellor Palpatine," Captain Gordo announced, "we have reason to believe you're involved in treasonous activities. We have a warrant to search these premises." Palpatine rose from behind his desk. "This is outrageous. Under whose authority?" "Standard procedure, Chancellor," an officer interrupted, rummaging through cabinets. "Don't interfere, or we'll add resisting arrest to the charges." "I demand to see this warrant," Palpatine said. Gordo patted his pockets. "Seems we've misplaced it. You'll be provided a copy at the precinct. For now, I suggest cooperation." The officers methodically searched the office. Minutes later, one called out, "Captain, look what we found." Gordo approached the concealed compartment, now open to reveal a bulky package wrapped in clear plastic. Inside, approximately 20 kilos of crystalline substance were compressed together, the unmistakable ash or sheen of unrefined spice gleaming under the office lights. The wrapping bore the telltale compression marks and heat seals of mass packaging operations from the lower levels, identical to a package that had occupied the evidence locker just hours earlier. "Well, well, well," Gordo said, lifting the hefty package with effort. The crystals shifted within, catching the illumination with an almost hypnotic quality. "What do we have here? 20 kilos of unrefined spice, it seems like." Palpatine's expression shifted from confusion to outrage. "That is absurd. Those aren't mine." "Oh yeah? Then why does this label say 'For Palpatine'?" Gordo asked, pointing to large letters scrawled with a permanent marker directly across the plastic wrapping. Palpatine squinted at the label. "That says Palpatine," he noted. Gordo chuckled and shook his head. "Of course, the lowlifes who sold you this garbage can't read or write properly." His eyes then flickered toward a human officer with thick glasses standing near the door. The officer suddenly became intensely interested in his datapad. "Officer," Gordo bellowed, finding a convenient excuse, "is that regulation uniform appearance? Your insignia is 2 centimeters off-center." He stormed over, face reddening. "What the kind of operation are you running here? You waste of oxygen." Gordo barked at the glasses-wearing officer, seizing the opportunity to discipline him without revealing the actual mistake. His voice escalated to a roar. "This is why you're instead of bringing such incompetence into my precinct." He continued with a barrage of increasingly creative insults, suggesting the officer perform anatomically impossible acts with various Senate artifacts and proposing that the man's head would be more useful as a refresher cleaning device than in law enforcement. The tirade included several references to the officer's ancestry that questioned both species and sentience. "Can we please focus on the matter at hand?" Palpatine interjected, his authoritative tone momentarily cutting through Gordo's tirade. Gordo paused mid-insult, nostrils flaring as he turned his attention back to the Chancellor. The glasses-wearing officer exhaled with visible relief. "Captain, I must respectfully emphasize that none of this belongs to me," Palpatine stated, maintaining as much dignity as the situation allowed. "You're not being very convincing, Chancellor," Gordo replied, the implication hanging in the air. He then leaned closer to Palpatine, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial level while maintaining steady eye contact. His right hand made a subtle rubbing motion with his thumb and forefinger. "Perhaps we could discuss alternative approaches to processing this evidence." The other officers suddenly found reasons to examine distant corners of the office, giving their captain privacy for following procedure. Palpatine maintained his innocent stance, though he fully recognized the implied request for a bribe. His mind calculated rapidly behind his facade of confusion. The body cameras adorning each officer's uniform presented a significant risk. Using the Force now would be unwise. Better to play along with this charade for the moment, allowing these petty criminals their illusion of power. After all, what real threat could these corrupt officers pose to a Sith Lord? Palpatine reasoned. Gordo sighed. "You can explain yourself at the station. You're under arrest for narcotics trafficking, possession with intent to distribute, abuse of power, misuse of Senate property, resisting arrest, lying to officers during an investigation, identity fraud, for using an alias on your spice packages, and..." He glanced at a datapad, improvising additional charges: violation of Republic trade regulations, tax evasion on illegal goods, and conspiracy to corrupt government officials. As Gordo finished his list, he suddenly snapped his fingers. "Oh, and treason. Can't forget that one," he muttered, scribbling it on his datapad. In the flow of their usual interpretation of procedure, the original charge had nearly slipped his mind. The officers exchanged subtle glances of anticipation. Taking Palpatine to the precinct would give them access to their full arsenal of fraudulent evidence and interrogation techniques. The station's security systems conveniently malfunctioned during high-profile detainments, creating the perfect environment to apply maximum pressure for maximum payoff. Captain Gordo had already mentally calculated how to distribute the anticipated windfall among his team. "This is preposterous," Palpatine exclaimed. "Add another count of resisting arrest," Gordo dictated to an officer taking notes. "Also note that we suspect the Chancellor may be working for the Outer Rim cartels. Due to his practice of using fake names for narcotics trafficking, it's possible he is actually the infamous cartel mastermind, Cedranexus Ventriloquist III, who has eluded Republic authorities for decades." "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," an officer instructed Palpatine, producing restraints. Palpatine refused, reaching for his desk console. "Guards, clone security, respond immediately." Gordo struck Palpatine's midsection with his baton. "Communications have been disabled. Standard protocol for high-risk arrests," he informed the Chancellor with a smirk. Palpatine's mind seized on this crucial detail. Communications disabled meant their body cameras weren't uploading footage to the CSF central servers. Any recordings would remain local, stored only on devices he could destroy. No witnesses, no evidence. A perfect opportunity. His calculating mind rapidly assessed the situation while pain radiated from where the baton had struck. The first physical assault he'd endured since Darth Plagueis decades ago. The shock of such insolence, such disrespect to a Sith Lord, triggered something primal within him. Palpatine's composure dissolved completely, his eyes flashing yellow as decades of carefully maintained restraint evaporated. Why bother with subtle force suggestion when he could simply eliminate these insignificant obstacles? He would execute Order 66, claiming the Jedi had sent these officers to assassinate him. The clone programming would protect him from reprisal. As for Anakin, that naive fool, he would simply tell him the dark side could not only save Padme, but perhaps even resurrect his mother. The boy's emotional vulnerabilities made him so wonderfully manipulable. These thoughts coalesced in microseconds as rage consumed the Sith Lord. He reached for his lightsaber. "Note that suspect shows signs of spice consumption. Yellow eyes, erratic behavior," Gordo continued. "Authorization for appropriate force. Approved." Palpatine extracted the lightsaber from his sleeve. The crimson blade hummed to life. "Suspect is armed," Gordo shouted, throwing his blaster along with the other officers. "Open fire." Palpatine moved with unnatural speed, his crimson blade tracing figure 8 patterns through the air as he deflected blaster bolts back at their sources. Officers fell in rapid succession, limbs and torsos cleaved apart with surgical precision. The Chancellor's face contorted with rage and dark pleasure as he dismembered his would-be arresters. What Palpatine didn't know was that while standard CSF body cameras were blocked by the jammers, these officers had modified theirs with confiscated cartel communication transmitters hardwired directly to the camera units. This setup, operating on encrypted frequencies, specifically designed to bypass Republic security measures, connected to the broader network of corrupt officers. They had originally developed the system as a safety protocol, allowing their corrupt colleagues to monitor shakedowns remotely and intervene if officers were injured or killed during an extortion attempt gone wrong. Today, that precaution proved unexpectedly valuable. The officers' modified body cameras streamed the massacre directly to their equally corrupt colleagues throughout the CSF network. The footage of a lightsaber-wielding Chancellor transforming officers into smoldering pieces triggered an unexpected response: greed. CSF regulations provided substantial bonuses for neutralizing force wielders who killed law enforcement. Within minutes, nearly 50 police speeders converged on the Senate building, each pilot calculating their share of the bounty. Having dispatched Gordo and his squad, Palpatine deactivated his lightsaber and surveyed the carnage with satisfaction. He strolled among the dismembered bodies, nudging Gordo's severed head with his boot. "Such is the fate of all who dare challenge a Sith Lord," he declared to the empty room, allowing himself a moment of theatrical indulgence. He continued his monologue, savoring his victory for precious minutes, unaware that every word was being transmitted across the corrupt police network. Finally remembering the need for haste, Palpatine approached the main doors only to find them electronically sealed. Gordo's team had activated the emergency lockdown protocols before entering. The Chancellor snarled with irritation, placing his hands on the reinforced durasteel. Focusing his rage, he channeled the force through his fingertips, the metal groaning and bending outward until he managed to pull the sealed door from its frame. But before he could alert his guards, his escape route was blocked by waves of corrupt officers pouring in from every direction. The office space surrounding him erupted with blaster fire from all angles as officers recklessly shot through the open doorway. In their frenzied attempt to claim the bounty, officers showed complete disregard for their colleagues' positions. Many fell to friendly fire, which only incentivized the survivors. Fewer living officers meant larger shares of the bounty for those who remained. Amidst the chaos, an officer whose uniform strained against his considerable girth retrieved what he thought was a stun grenade from his speeder's storage compartment. The device, actually a massive military-grade thermal detonator, had been confiscated earlier that week from the evidence locker. The officer had stolen it, intending to sell it on the black market, as he did with most evidence that crossed his path. He'd been scammed by his regular buyer, who downplayed the weapon's significance, claiming it was nothing major, just a modified stun device. Having no technical knowledge about explosives, he'd grabbed it on his way to join the Palpatine bounty hunt, figuring it might prove useful. The fatally out-of-shape officer, who hadn't run at all in 5 years, attempted to sprint toward Palpatine, but tripped over a fallen colleague. The impact activated the unstable device, which detonated immediately. The explosion was far more powerful than anyone anticipated, vaporizing that entire section of the Senate building along with all occupants, all 200 officers, and 1 Sith Lord. The most tragic loss was the 20 kilos of spice meant for Palpatine that was vaporized in the explosion. In the aftermath, the Republic was stunned, but ultimately relieved. The Separatist movement dissolved without its secret architect. The clone army, no longer controlled by Palpatine's contingency orders, integrated into the CSF. At the Jedi Temple, Anakin was sad, but after he and the council members partook in what they called a celebration of galactic peace by burning some herbs from their own evidence locker, Anakin forgot all about it. He even forgot who Palpatine or Palpatine or whatever his name was. This became a habit for Anakin, leading to him being passed out in the council chamber with Yoda when Luke and Leia were born.